First question is about what makes Avowed different from any previous Obsidian games that you made. Is there any new game design features that you never did before in any games?
So I think one thing that really sets Avowed apart is the emphasis and the strength of the combat experience. Avowed is still an Obsidian style RPG, which means, you get a lot of choice and consequence, and you have a very nuanced story that encourages the player to step into a very complicated political and spiritual situation. But the moment-to-moment experience of combat is really varied and really fun. And I think players are going to see, and hopefully you experienced in the demo.
I did.
Yeah, just a really visceral sense of, swinging your weapon, casting spells, firing pistols. There's a ton of variety and flexibility in the combat system we built and in loadouts that players can equip. And each of those experiences and choices will feel different and really impactful.
Okay.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
You want to add something? Yeah.
Yeah. So the only thing I would say is we've made games in first person before, like Outer Worlds, for instance, and it's a similar structure to that. But I do think there's a lot more verticality and density in the environments, which is enabled by our core or climbing system, where you can mantle on ledges and jump gaps and charge across larger gaps and things like that. And that allows us to do a lot more with the environments than we were previously.
Le jeu se passe en fait dans le monde de Path of Exile, et il y a des gens qui n'ont jamais joué à Path of Exile. Est-ce que c'est un problème pour eux? Est-ce qu'ils seront perdus s'ils n'ont pas le lore, le background avant? Est-ce que vous avez pensé à ça dans le jeu?
Yes, we expect that many of our players are going to be coming to Avowed without prior experience in Pillars of Eternity. So for returning Pillars fans, there are certainly touchstones in the lore and among the characters that they'll recognize. But, for new players, we want to welcome them into this world too. The Living Lands is going to be a new setting for all of our players. Okay. And the story of Avowed and most of the characters of Avowed are going to be new to all of our players as well, returning or new. So, we're welcoming the player into this new world, and we've really paced our dialogues and kind of the depth and the levels that players can engage in when they're moving through a conversation tree around what the player chooses to engage in, and around focusing on how we give the player a clear and impactful story experience, even if they're just going through the crit path. And we have a really wonderful glossary system too that helps players get to know some of the lore terms in our game, some of the events and the places. If there's a term you don't understand, the name of a god, when you're playing through the dialogue, you can hit a button and you'll get a brief explanation of any highlighted topics in that part of the dialogue.
Okay. You want to add something now?
Sure. Okay. The one thing I would add is there's a lot of opt-in opportunities like the glossary system, or many of our examinables, like you'll see in the dungeon. There's a lot of things to read, and if you want to do that, that's part of your RPG experience you love. That is there in droves. But if you don't want to read that stuff, you're not going to be super confused or lost. Okay. It just enriches the experience.
Ok. Le jeu, il n'y a pas vraiment de système de classe. On n'est pas assigné à une classe. On peut mélanger des armes différentes, des magies différentes pour se créer un peu notre propre façon de jouer. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous expliquer comment ça fonctionne?
So as you mentioned, Avowed is a classless system. We have 3 ability trees that are themed around traditional fighter style skills, which will focus more on melee and kind of, abilities that get you into the action like charge. We have a ranger themed tree that will focus more on ranged weapons and crowd control abilities like Tanglefoot, which kind of roots an enemy in place. And then we have a wizard focus tree, which focuses more on magical abilities, things like Minnaletta's minor missiles and Grimoire and wand mastery. So as you said, you can mix and match between them. You do not have to invest in the earlier parts of a tree in order to get the later skills once you have the requisite level unlocked. So as you move through the game and gain in levels, you will have access to higher impact abilities. But yeah, you can play with those. You can also mix and match the loadouts. So if you want to dual wield, if you want to take a pistol and a mace, if you just want a big 2-handed sword, you can play around with all those things. And, the game really encourages you to experiment. When you're going through the first region, we really hope players are going to pick up all the weapons we have to offer, try them out, and find the ones that work best for them. And when they find a new unique, maybe of a weapon type they haven't experimented much before, give that a try and maybe specialize into it.
I would say we don't talk about it that much, but there are a lot of unique weapons in the game. All of them have totally different effects.
I bet here.
Yeah, and it's sometimes you'll find something get really attached to it, and you want to bring it to the later in the game, and that's a very fun experience. You can mix and match all weapon types, really. So you can have a pistol in one hand and an axe in the other, and then you can unlock particular spells if you want them. Like you want to use Pull of Aora and bring everybody into a crowd and throw a grenade in the middle. Like you can do that.
Amazing.
And those things are also, we have the ability to respec as well. So if something's not working out for you, you can try a totally different loadout. And that we're still tuning like the cost of that, but that is available to you if you're just, something isn't working in your loadout or you want to try something or role play a little differently. Yeah.
And do you have any favorite weapon or build in the game?
My favorite right now, and I kind of try to experiment a lot because we have so much ability tree.
Yeah.
So I tend to use a pistol in one hand, and the freezing axe drawn in winter that you'll see in the demo, I use that a lot. I love it because I can freeze and shatter people. And if you combo that with charge, you can get a good enough damage to shatter enemies. And it does a lot of damage. So that's really fun. I tend to like spell casting, but not always use the Grimoire. So I'll unlock Pull of Aora or Grimoire Snap, which is, I love it because I can unlock Grimoire Snap. I can pull out a Grimoire, boop everybody in the area, have them knock back, and then I can put the Grimoire back and pull a pistol out. So I love that aspect.
And I really like dual wielding pistols because you fire one, then while that one's reloading, you fire the other one, and then you use something like charge to just smash into a bunch of enemies, and then maybe like a barbarian shout or clear out to do a little damage and area of effect around you. Dodge around a bit, and then do some more. It's very chaotic, very fun.
I love dual wield.
Yes.
Yeah, I played as a ranger.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice. There's a really good weapon too. I think later in the game, a bow or a pistol with the shock enchantment. You shoot one, it has a chance of expanding to other enemies, and so you'll shoot one guy, and then you'll just see this little electric bolt dance around the group. It's so good.
I can't wait to see it. Ma question, c'est au niveau des visuels. Le jeu est magnifique. Et il y a un step-up assez important entre la version 2023 qu'on a vue et la version 2024. Et donc ma question, c'est est-ce que vous prenez en compte les retours des joueurs sur les réseaux sociaux, sur YouTube, et est-ce que ça affecte le développement du jeu pour les équipes de développement? Est-ce qu'ils changent des choses, ils ajustent, ils adaptent différents aspects du jeu?
Yeah, so, one of the challenges but the joys also of, sharing progress of a game in development is, you're seeing footage that is in progress and something that we're actively building. And things like atmospheric effects, like depth of fog, lighting effects, little atmospheric effects that just add this sense of realism and texture to a level. A lot of those things come online a bit later in development for us. And it's, a lot of these little touches and refinements that really take something from looking like the start of a game to something that's really ready to ship. But we definitely pay attention to player feedback. We definitely keep an eye on what folks are saying, especially when we share more footage. And I think that the progress that we made with enemy hit reactions, that's one where we, the footage that we showed at the Xbox podcast back in January, even at that time was a couple months old. But it was a good reminder and good incentive for us to continue that work on hit reactions and get Paramo, our gameplay director, and the combat team that he works with, continued honing both the way that enemies physically react to being hit by the player, but also a lot of little touches like directional blood splatter with VFX, just kind of little flashes and audio cues that kind of just exactly that make those impacts come through. So that's all stuff that we continue to hone and refine, but it's stuff that tends to come in much later in development.
Okay.
I would say there's like a bit of a risk-reward aspect to it where we're showing there's no smoke and mirrors. It's like this is the game and we're going to show it to the world, and that saves us some time. We're not spending a whole bunch of time making a fake demo for everyone to see. It's really the game, and that culminates eventually in a demo that's showing very well and people are enjoying it. But in that real-time aspect, you can get feedback, and some of it's harsh, some of it's very helpful, but that can get incorporated as we're working. And so, we love the feedback. It's always appreciated, even if sometimes it's tough love, So.
Okay. Yeah. Vous pouvez nous dire comment le jeu tourne sur les consoles Xbox, sur Series X et Series S, parce qu'on voit beaucoup de sujets à propos des 30 FPS, 60 FPS. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous expliquer un peu ou nous parler de ça?
We don't have too many performance things to announce today. We'll say that in that interview Matt was saying it's a minimum of 30 FPS, but the game runs very well on both consoles already, and we're continuing to work on that. We're still in the home stretch here, and performance is one of the last things we work on. So we're we don't have anything too specific to say.
Still optimizing.
Still optimizing for sure.
Le joueur va faire des choix différents durant l'aventure. Et est-ce que ces choix influeront en fait les différentes possibilités de fin auxquels on accède à la fin du jeu, tout simplement.
Yeah, so I'm actually very excited to see players experience the end of the game. We put a lot of work into making sure that the player's final experience brings in reactivity and appearances from characters and groups and choices that you've met and made all across the game.
Okay.
I know we do a lot of work on our end slides, which is where we show kind of a lot of the farther reaching reactivity to individual characters and storylines, and you can kind of see the impact that you've had on the world as a character in it for a long time kind of after your experience with it. But yeah, what I love about RPGs is that every player's story feels very personal, because it's not just the result of the very big choices you make, but it's also the result of the smaller ones you make. And by the end, players are going to see the impact they've had on individual characters, and entire cultures in the Living Lands.
Donc pendant le jeu, dans la démo, on avait accès à un compagnon. Donc ma question, c'est est-ce que dans le jeu, on peut construire des liens un peu sociaux et d'affect avec les compagnons? Et combien y a-t-il de compagnons dans le jeu?
So you'll meet 4 different companions in the game, and they represent a spread of personalities and also different species in Aora, and obviously different, traditional party roles. You can have 2 with you at any time while you're adventuring. The demo you played, you're playing relatively early, so you've only met one of them. But once you meet another, you'll have 2 with you. And yeah, we wanted to give the player a really organic sense of, building their relationship and their experience with these companions. So we don't have like a mechanical, formalized relationship system, but what we have are a lot of opportunities to get to know the Living Lands and the story that you're embarking on through your companion's eyes, because all of them are locals to the Living Lands. They were either born there or they've spent a lot of time there. And so, we really wanted them to inform the player's experience and add a very personal dimension, because, these are the people you're getting to know, your friends, your allies, and the choices that you make affect them and their communities. And so there are a lot of opportunities over the course of the game to hear their perspectives, to get to know them and their personal stories, and just really get to know them as people. And we wanted to create that sense of, being on a long journey together, kind of sharing a campsite and a fireside, and, just developing together as people.
So we'll say each companion has a distinct kind of combat role. They're very deep characters that you can opt into quite a bit of backstory on. There's a lot of party camp conversations that will go into them as characters and also react to the choices you've made in your side quests and the main story as well. So in real time they'll commentate while you're talking to them. You can ask them what their thoughts are and things, and they'll also talk to you afterwards and kind of debrief, like what just happened. I don't know, what's your opinion on this thing? So that's also an opportunity for you if you really want to dive deep and form a relationship with them.
Okay, I see. Well, thank you very much.